Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next hour, Hong Kong is bracing for Typhoon Saola, with a storm expected to make landfall shortly. The African Union has suspended Gabon's membership one day after military officers ousted President Ali Bongo. More than 70 people are dead after a fire tore through a rundown apartment block in Johannesburg. And javelin thrower Chopra finished second at the Diamond League in Zurich. All right, let's get to the preparations that are in place, that are in fact, continuing in India's capital, New Delhi, ahead of the G20 summit happening next weekend. We'll get you a detailed report on that.
Fountains lit up with multicolored lights, and everywhere, lush greenery. India's national capital, New Delhi, is being transformed to welcome the heads of over 40 states when the G20 summit begins on September the 9th. From small gardens to main highways, Delhi is aiming to show its best face to the world. India, a country with strong economic growth, is ready to host hundreds of delegates arriving to discuss the global economy. The iconic G20 logo is everywhere here. But it's hoped this will be a summit of substance, not just symbol. Flags on poles, one that India can be proud of. There is certainly pride in the pots and plants. The authorities say over 100,000 potted plants, 3,000 fully grown trees and over 4 million saplings have been planted in the central Delhi area in preparation for this summit. There are new sculptures too. Around 20 have been installed at 12 key districts along with 12 fountains. And it's hoped that long after the summit is over, the new flowers and fountains will benefit everyone in Delhi, a lasting legacy and a beautiful memory of a historic summit.
India's theme for G20 is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family. Here in the national capital, they are working very hard to welcome the leaders of the G20 nations. The authorities are leaving no stone unturned to make the city more beautiful than ever. From unique art installations to tall fountains surrounded by lush greenery, the city is expected to look better and brighter when the summit begins on September 9th. With camera person Mahesh, this is Siddharth for DD India, New Delhi.
Meanwhile, excitement is building up as Delhi is all set to welcome the G20 delegates. DD India correspondent Dibendu Mondal visited the iconic Chandni Chowk market to get a sense of this excitement. Let's watch this.
As India gears to celebrate G20 and welcome the world leaders, the markets here in Delhi are buzzing with excitement. We are at Chandni Chowk, famous for various eateries, clothes. We are at a famous jalebi shop here in Delhi, Chandni Chowk, and we will straight away go across to this man and ask him, आपका G20 के लिए क्या preparation है?
हमारा ये प्रिपरेशन है जी कि ये बाहर के जो मेहमान आ रहे हैं, जॉन बाइडन आ रहे हैं, चाइना के राष्ट्रपति आ रहे हैं, वो सब आएँ और ये चांदनी चौक का प्रसिद्ध जलेबा और रबड़ी खाएँ.
We are on the narrow bylanes of Old Delhi, and these bylanes are filled with hundreds of eateries which dates back to 100 years old during the Mughal era. We are at the Paratha Wala Gali where they serve one of the oldest type of flatbread, stuffed flatbread, which is deep fried. They have variety of these deep fried parathas, which includes aloo paratha, which is smashed potato parathas, which is a delicacy here in India that is enjoyed by both young and old. There are several people, famous personalities, who have tasted them and have taken back the reminiscence of Old Delhi and the taste of Old Delhi with them. Chandni Chowk is also famous for it's fashion. We are here at a lehenga shop that has specifically designed some lehengas for the delegates of G20 who will be visiting the national capital in the next week.
Sir, first of all, it's an honor for us that we are hosting G20, and the whole market is very euphoric about it, and we are expecting a lot of people to come and visit Chandni Chowk. We have a new collection. First of all, I would like to show you this lehenga and choli. So this is very popular in Western markets also. And then we have some Indo-Western with a choli and plazo, and with a shrug, with dhoti, with a dhoti and a top shrug. So these are all Indo-Western. They're very popular among the foreign dignitaries and foreign guests and all. We have keep coming in the market, and we are very happy, and we're looking forward that the markets are all open and lot of guests come to Chandni Chowk, and we'll give them a very good collection. As you can see, this is all a new line which we have specially created, keeping in mind the style and the taste of the Western countries, the kind of clothes they wear. So Indian fashion is all over the world. I think after France is India only. So I'm sure they'll be looking forward.
In Chandni Chowk, we are also joined by members of the Chamber of Trade and Industry that is looking after the entire preparation.
All the country, all the Delhi, all the traders are so excited about G20, and we are eagerly waiting from last 3-4 months to welcome the G20 delegates. And we are educating the traders. Traders are eagerly waiting. Lots of the traders they are not very good in English. That's why they have called their son and grandsons. They are expert in English. They can speak English fluently, because they don't want to get any kind of difficulty to communicate foreign delegates.
It is not only the traders who are excited about hosting the G20 leaders, the entire country is equally excited about hosting the G20 leaders and dignitaries and all the delegates that will be visiting not only this market in Chandni Chowk but also across the national capital. With camera person Manmohan Singh, this is Dibyendu Mondal from New Delhi for DD India.
All right, so Delhi's all geared up. Preparations are in full swing for the G20 summit. Talking of the agenda, then women-led development forms the core of India's G20 presidency. Jessica Taneja finds out more on how women's empowerment has transformed India.
From the kitchen to the office, from the corridors of power to the boardroom, more women than ever before are opening the doors to work and to a brighter future.
This role across India.
Devi Raju Chintalapati says she never thought of doing a 9-to-5 job. Just a year ago, she didn't know how to type or even access the internet.
I started my first innings at the age of 50. So after my children married and my husband is working, so I feel bored and I wanted to work. So I already done, it's 50 years in my household works, everything perfect. But I need to work. That time I don't know how to use a laptop and how to open a laptop and how to communicate in English or Hindi.
That's all changed. Devi was hired by one of India's leading talent recruitment firms.
In just 1 year, she became a business development expert.
Devi is pitching new clients, she's making presentations, she's closing the deals. With the right attitudes, skills can be taught.
While society narrows down homemaking to a handful of stereotypes, Devi is determined to defy odds and continue working.
Last 1 year, I recruited 50 people. In that, 60% are women.
Domain knowledge, not only of the talent.
While women are still a minority in India's boardrooms, this organization boasts of a workforce that's 85% women.
We've given them an environment where not only people like Shanti, Eva, Devi, but many more women who work for our organization have flourished. They've not only done well and reached their potential, they are now recruiting a lot of women for all the clients that we work for, and hope they will create an environment in the future, and this will be women's age.
According to the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, more than 90% of working age women aren't even looking for a job. But here, women are recruited in automotive and manufacturing industries, which are traditionally dominated by men. They go on to become not just factory workers, but also managers, CFOs and CTOs in the future. But the hard fact remains, fewer than 1 in 5 women work in the formal sector. And that's according to World Bank figures. India will be able to increase female workforce participation if it can find a way to tackle deep-seated prejudices. Jessica Thaneja for DD India.
All right, let's get to another priority of the G20 summit. We all know that India is all set to host the 2023 G20 summit, and one of the 6 main priorities identified for the summit is green development, climate finance and life. All of the world's coastal cities are coming to terms with rising sea levels as the hotter atmosphere warms the oceans and melts ice that was previously locked up on land. The world's richer cities are no exception, with low-lying London forced to adapt. Stuart Smith has more from the UK capital.
The River Thames Barrier needs an upgrade or a replacement to keep the 4th richest city in the world safe from flooding. The barrier's main job is to prevent storm surges rushing from the North Sea up the river into central London, a catastrophe which for the last 40 years has been prevented by solid metal and clever engineering. It's been successful so far, but global warming has forced the strategy to change.
The latest data indicates that sea levels are rising at a faster rate than they had previously. So we now know here on the Thames, by 2100, the mean tide level will be a metre higher than what it is now. And that's why we need to plan for the future and start that planning now.
That could mean closing this barrier less often or building an even bigger barrier downstream. In light of the changing data, the deadline for a decision on what to do has been brought forward from 2050 to 2040.
But there are concerns that while the plans to protect London look solid, the legislation and money for the various options has not been guaranteed.
At London City Hall, some are pushing for action now.
We haven't safeguarded the sites where the barrier needs to come out to the edges of the river, and if you don't do that, then how can you fit a new Thames barrier? And we need to have those sites safeguarded, and additionally we need some funding, proper funding for the Environment Agency, so that they can really start to take this forward.
Part of the issue, Cooper believes, is complacency and a lack of awareness about just how vulnerable London is.
Public awareness, particularly in London, is low of the impacts of flooding. I think there has been a tendency in this country to, in some cases, pretend that flooding is an issue for other countries abroad. I don't think that is the case at all. I think it will affect us not just around this country, but also in London, and therefore Londoners should be paying attention to this just as much as citizens anywhere else.
A new barrier would protect an additional 500,000 people and hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure. The debate isn't about whether something needs to be done, but when to make the call on the best solution. The designs for a new or upgraded barrier will be tested well over half a century later, all while the effects of climate change continue to manifest. Some scientists are trying to work out what it would take to stop that process.
For this sea level to sort of roughly stabilise, we would have to go back to pre-industrial temperatures. So we'd have to get the planet, 1.2 degrees colder than it is now. Otherwise, sea level is going to continue to rise at the rates or greater than it is now. And if we carry on warming the planet, it's just going to keep on accelerating.
So there's no doubt these plans will need to be implemented for 2100. How leaders respond to climate change now will dictate whether even more extreme plans will be required for 2200. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Let's get you profiles of some of the G20 leaders who are attending the summit in Delhi. Justin Pierre James Trudeau is Canada's 23rd Prime Minister. Prime Minister of Canada was born on December 25, 1971. Justin studied literature at McGill University, graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in 1994. He went on to complete the University of British Columbia's education program and spent several years teaching French, math and other subjects in Vancouver. Before entering politics, Justin served as the chair of Katamavik on the board of the Canadian Avalanche Foundation, and as an advocate for young people and the environment, Justin was elected leader of the Liberal Party in April 2013. On October 19, 2015, Trudeau led his party to victory, winning a majority government. He was sworn in on November 4, 2015. On 21st of November 2019, he led the Liberal Party to re-election, earning a second mandate from Canadians. On September 20th, 2021, Justin once again led the party to re-election, earning a third mandate to form the Canadian government. And now we'll take a look at previous G20 summits.
Initiated by finance ministers in 1999, the group of 20 met at leaders level for the first time in November 2008 in Washington, D.C., at the peak of the global financial crisis. The G20 was created in response to the financial crisis that arose in a number of emerging economies in the 1990s, and this summit focused primarily on strengthening financial regulation. The White House reported that the summit had reached what would be the Washington Declaration. The US summit achieved 5 key objectives in 2008. There was a common understanding of the root causes of the global financial crisis, actions taken by countries and to be taken to address the immediate crisis were reviewed. Common principles were agreed upon for reforming financial markets. An action plan was launched to implement those principles. The countries reaffirmed their commitment to free market principles. With this summit, there was a shift in global governance as a much more legitimate group could now take up relevant issues for over 2/3 of the world's population. Urvashi Kapoor for DD India.
And still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour, China issues alert for Typhoon Saola as it nears the coastline. African Union suspends Gabon's membership a day after President Ali Bongo was ousted by the military officers. "74 killed and 50 injured in a massive fire in South Africa's Johannesburg."
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ilal Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui
Nous
India.
sommes l'Inde.
Nahnu Hunud.
India.
Ma Hindi Hasti.
Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti Kaur. Let's get to the latest on India's solar mission. ISRO Chairman S. Somnath has said that the space agency was getting ready for tomorrow's launch of the country's ambitious solar mission Aditya L1 and that the countdown for its launch will start today. The launch of the first space-based Indian observatory to study the sun is scheduled on Saturday at 11:50 a.m. from Sriharikota Space Station in Andhra Pradesh. Also, the satellite will be placed in a halo orbit around the Lagrange point, that is L1, of the Sun-Earth system, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. It will take around 4 months to reach the Lagrange point, and also the advantage of the halo orbit around the L1 point is that the satellite can observe the solar activities without any obstruction by other celestial activities like an eclipse. The Aditya L1 mission is to study the solar winds and also sun's atmosphere. NASA SpaceX Crew 6 members celebrated their farewell on the International Space Station before they began their journey back to the Earth. The Crew 6 have spent their 6th month in a mission conducting vital research on space. The returning astronauts have now ended their responsibilities and concluded scientific experiments. After the departure, the space station's population will go down to 7. All right, let's talk of other updates now. The nation's Secretary General has sent Russian Foreign Minister a set of proposals aimed at reviving the Black Sea grain deal. The letter comes ahead of a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan next week. Russia quit the deal in July, complaining that its own food and fertilizer exports faced obstacles.
We presented a set of concrete proposals in a letter I've sent to the Russian Foreign Minister. We presented a set of concrete proposals allowing to create the conditions for the renewal of the Black Sea Initiative. I believe that working seriously we can have a positive solution for everybody, for the Ukraine, for the Russian Federation, but more important than everything else, for the world in a moment in which so many countries are facing enormous difficulties in relation to guarantee the food security of their populations.
Up next, we get to the latest on the weather phenomena occurring across the world. Hong Kong is under a severe storm warning as Typhoon Saola approaches. Heavy rain and violent winds are expected to lash the city, with authorities saying the storm could be the strongest to hit Hong Kong in 5 years. Andrew Wood is joining us to get us more Hong Kong braces for the impact of Super Typhoon Saola, which has begun to make a landfall. Andrew, let us get the latest from you. When do we expect the landfall to occur, and also any special instructions that have been put forth by the authorities?
Well, the authorities have said in the last half an hour that they've opened 33 shelters across Hong Kong, typhoon shelters for people to take refuge in. There's only one report of an injury so far, but at the moment the winds are only gusting up to about 60 kilometers per hour. They're probably going to will go over 100 kilometers per hour in the next couple of hours. We're really only feeling the outer bands of the typhoon at the moment. And over the next 12 hours or so, the center of the typhoon is likely to come within 50 kilometers of the city of Hong Kong, according to the meteorologists. So it's going to get a lot worse. At the moment, we're on typhoon warning 8. There's a typhoon signal 9 and a typhoon 10 above it. There's hints from the meteorologists that this might turn into a typhoon 10. And that's only been, the typhoon 10 signal has only been raised a couple of times over the past 25 years. And the worst was 5 years ago with Typhoon Mangkhut, which is now what people are beginning to compare this storm to.
All right, Andrew, thank you for joining in. And also, Hurricane Idalia has now passed over the United States mainland, but across the country's southeast, hundreds of thousands of people still remain without power as the carnage caused by the powerful storm is laid bare. The Category 3 hurricane, which made landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast on Wednesday, submerged neighborhoods leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. U.S. President Joe Biden, who spent Thursday at the Federal Emergency Management Agency headquarters in Washington, has signed a major disaster declaration, with authorities promising to do whatever it takes to get affected areas back up and running. From the nation's capital, Benji Haya gets us more.
Homes ripped apart, roads littered with debris. The images from the ground in the aftermath of this weather system show communities dealing with significant damage. The sights, well, some are surreal. Eels swimming through eerie residential streets. And now the cleanup operation begins. This was the strongest storm to hit this part of Florida in more than 100 years, but its path may have helped spare much worse. It avoided heavily populated areas, and most locals did heed warnings to evacuate. It means only a handful of deaths have so far been linked directly to the hurricane. Yet, whilst residents for the most part escaped with their lives, many have lost their livelihoods. And to think, these are regions which had only just recovered from hurricanes in the very recent past. President Joe Biden at FEMA's HQ thanked federal workers for their assistance with this crisis and other natural disasters of late, including, of course, those devastating wildfires in Hawaii. He said it's impossible to deny the impact that climate change is having on our planet. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Let's get to the latest from Africa now. The African Union on Thursday suspended Gabon's membership 1 day after President Ali Bongo was ousted by the military officers. Now, this is the first regional response to the coup. The takeover in Gabon ended over 6 decades of rule by Ali Bongo's family. Meanwhile, markets and trade in the border town near Gabon remained suspended. The military junta, however, said that it had resumed domestic flights and restored some state institutions, but land and air borders remained shut. The coup leader, who overthrew Gabon's Bongo dynasty, will be sworn in as the president on Monday. In Niger, ruling junta has ordered the police to expel France's ambassador, a move marking a further downturn in the relations and one that Paris says the military had no authority to make. The coup's leaders are following the strategy of juntas in neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso in distancing themselves from the region's former colonial power amid a wave of anti-French sentiment. The visas of French ambassador to Niamey, Sylvain Ait, and his family have been cancelled, and police are instructed to expel the envoy. The move was condemned by regional African authorities and also by the Western nations. The European Union's foreign ministers have agreed to start drafting legal groundwork for sanctions against coup leaders in Niger.
The ministers reiterated our will to support African solutions for African problems. And it means that we will support ECOWAS. We have expressed this will from the first moment of the coup. It's up to them to take initiatives and decisions in order to counter this military coup, and we will follow, trying to implement the same kind of sanctions that they have decided. We are moving forward for an autonomous sanctions regime to take measures against the putschists. Work has already started, and tomorrow the Foreign Affairs Ministers will advance on that.
In South Africa, at least 74 people are dead and dozens more are injured after a massive fire that broke out in Johannesburg. The blaze in South Africa's biggest city broke out in a 5-story building with reports that it was home to almost 400 people. The country's president says an investigation is underway as rescue teams carry out a sweep of the charred building.
And our hearts go out to every person who is affected by this disaster. This incident calls on all of us, from the emergency services and other entities of government, to reach out to survivors to help restore people's physical, psychological well-being, and to offer all material help and assistance to the residents affected by this. And I do hope that the investigations into the fire will enable communities and authorities to prevent a repeat of such a tragedy.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, Paris becomes the first European city to ban rental e-scooters. Abu Dhabi's AI company Inception, a unit of G42, has released world's most advanced Arabic large language model, JAIS. Come September 9th, and a new chapter will be written on the bilateral ties of India and Bangladesh as the trial run of goods train from Bangladesh to Nischintpur in Tripura on the Indian side is expected to begin. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti Kaur. A quick relook at the top stories we're tracking this hour. The African Union suspends Gabon's membership one day after military officers ousted President Ali Bongo. A typhoon is bearing down on Hong Kong as authorities issue a high-level storm warning. Javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra finishes second at the Diamond League in Zurich. Let's get you the latest from the United States now. At least 2 people are dead and 3 others are injured after a shooting incident near a shopping center in Austin, Texas. No suspects have yet been detained, with police saying that there is no current threat to the public. And more stories are emerging from Washington state in the US, with emergency services detailing the length they went to when wildfires devastated the region last month. Firefighter Dwayne Hughes lost his own home as he fought to protect the property of others.
This was like a war zone. I mean, everything was ash. There was nothing left. There were some chimneys we came upon, some burnout cars, but and there were, don't get me wrong, there were a couple of houses that just by the grace of God were saved, you know. But when I got to my house, you know, I saw that outbuildings were on the ground, and my truck was just a hole, and then the house, all there was left was pretty much the metal on the roof, but everything was on the ground.
In the U.S. markets, the Wall Street closed out the month in the red after a lackluster performance on the final day of August. Inflation data also, that was out on Thursday, will probably do little to change minds at the Federal Reserve ahead of the next monetary policy meeting. Nick Harper has sent this report.
It's been a tough month for Wall Street, in fact the toughest month so far this year. And despite a 4-day winning streak where the main indices remained in the green, Thursday's session didn't do enough to help the benchmarks claw their way into positive territory for the month. All three were down more than 1% for August. For the day, the Dow dropped 0.5%, the S&P also fell, down 0.2%, and the Nasdaq managed a small gain of 0.1%. On the economic data front, the core personal consumption expenditures index, a gauge of inflation, showed an increase of 0.2% month over month. The reading was in line with expectations, but still a disappointing increase, following more than a year of aggressive interest rate rises by the US Federal Reserve. Now, Friday will see the release of the all-important monthly jobs figures. A particularly robust reading, with hiring outstripping expectations, could push the Fed to hike rates again in September. As it stands, though, the thinking is that the US Central Bank will leave rates unchanged. One bit of company news, and Dollar General's share price fell off a cliff on Thursday following the release of a quarterly report showing a considerable earnings miss. Shares dropped 13% on the news. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Former leader of the far-right Proud Boys group, Joseph Biggs, has been sentenced to 17 years in prison for his role in January 6th U.S. Capitol riots. The sentence marks the second longest prison term handed down for anyone involved in the U.S. Capitol riots. His co-defendant, Zachary Rahal, was also sentenced to 15 years in prison. More than 1,100 individuals have been charged in connection with the Capitol riot so far. Out of them, over 590 have been convicted and sentenced. So those were the updates from the US, getting you more updates in an attempt to connect more with the various sections of the society. Brazilian President Lula da Silva interacted with people at a soup kitchen in Rio de Janeiro. President Lula launched Brazil Without Hunger to beat the poverty and hunger situations. He insisted that Brazil does not lack in food, but money is what brings him parity. A section of society has much to eat and the other may go without food for many days. He emphasized that the nation needs more jobs to ensure everyone has food and the wealth of the nation gets equally shared.
The United Nations in 2023 is far from having the same credibility of the UN in 1945. The Security Council, which should be a figure of peace and calm, is a Security Council that is doing war without talking to anyone. Russia goes to Ukraine without discussing the Security Council. The United States went to Iraq without discussing the Security Council. France and England invaded Libya without passing through the Security Council. This is, the ones who go to war are the countries members of the Security Council. The ones making guns are the countries of the Security Council. The ones selling guns are the countries of the Security Council. That's wrong. We need to understand that we need more countries in the Security Council.
All right, and updates from Asia. Pope Francis is in Mongolia as part of a 4-day trip. The majority Buddhist country, which borders both Russia and China, is home to just over 1,000 Catholics. The church says the Pope will be meeting with religious leaders and will be holding a mass. Electric scooters are no longer available for rent in Paris after residents voted to ban them from the streets. It is for the first time a major European city has adopted electric scooters before then choosing to ban them completely. Stuart Smith has more from the French capital.
Since 2018, parking bays like this one have been dedicated to electric scooters, but you won't find any of those here now. The three providers of e-scooters in Paris have packed them up and sent them to other parts of the country, as well as to other parts of Europe. When brought in, they were the new face of city transportation, paid for and unlocked simply via smartphone and non-polluting. But some residents in Paris found them a nuisance and a danger. Last year, 3 riders were killed using them and 459 people injured. That prompted a referendum. Earlier in the year, Parisians were asked if they wanted to keep the scooters. 89% of voters said no, though only 7.5% of those eligible to vote actually expressed an opinion at the ballot box. Nonetheless, the city decided to let the operator licenses expire last month. And so it's back to more traditional forms of transportation in Paris, with operators planning to bring in more e-bikes ahead of the 2024 Olympics. Stuart Smith in Paris, reporting for DD India.
Uber has launched an electric motorbike service in Kenya, the first in Africa. It comes as the company is looking to make its global platform emissions free by 2040. In Kenya, the company plans to have 3,000 new electric bikes dubbed Electric Border within 6 months. Drivers will now see a 30 to 35% drop in their operating costs, and the users of the platform will have to pay 15 to 20% less than they do for a regular Uber motorbike trip. Come September 9th, and a new chapter will be written on the bilateral ties of India and Bangladesh as the trial run of goods train from Bangladesh to Nischintpur in Tripura on the Indian side is expected to begin. A special report from DD India's Agartala correspondent Kunal Shinde.
The long-cherished dream of the commencement of the railway line or train service from Nischintpur near Agartala to Ganga Sagar in Bangladesh will soon become a reality as the white-coloured gates on the Indo-Bangla border will open soon, signalling a new railway line between Agartala in India and Ganga Sagar in Bangladesh. Certainly, this initiative is going to script a brand new chapter in the history of robust ties between India and the neighbouring country, Bangladesh. The grueling trolley trials conducted on the meter gauge track by the officials and workers under IRCON of Indian Railways at the Nischintpur railway station is a testimony to a steadfast approach to overcoming any last-minute glitch. India's Ministry of Development of Northeast region is funding the railway line from Agartala to Nischintpur, whereas India's Ministry of External Affairs is funding for the railway line from Nischintpur to Ganga Sagar, which is in Bangladesh. This railway line is considered strategic in nature as India emphasizes on further enhancing the ties with Bangladesh. India believes that trade between the two countries will also get a boost with the operationalization of this rail link project. Kunal Shinde's report for DD India from Agartala.
And DD India's Agartala correspondent Kunal Shinde spoke to Raman Singla, General Manager IRCON, that is building the railway line connecting Agartala with Bangladesh. Let's listen in.
The train service from Nischintpur to Ganga Sagar in Bangladesh is expected to start from 9th of September. We are at the newly laid tracks by the IRCON company. To talk more on this, we have with us the General Manager of IRCON, Mr. Singla.
Thank you for having me here. Today actually we have just had a trolley run on the Indian side, and all the 4 meter gauge tracks have been completed on the Indian side, and the works on the Bangladesh side are also completed. On 26th August, there was a trial run on the Bangladesh side which was conducted by Bangladesh Railways, in which officers from MEA were also present. So if all goes well, we hope that we'll be having a goods train trial run on 9th September. So it's a very long cherished project of people of Tripura, and people have been waiting for long to see this project starting. So while most of the physical works are complete on the Bangladesh side as well, but final finishing is in progress, like the final packing of the track, final tamping of the track, it is in progress, which will be completed in another 3-4 days. So we hope to see goods train coming from Bangladesh in Nischintpur yard, and if all goes well, because Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, she is traveling to India in the second week of September for this G20 summit. So if all goes well, both the Prime Ministers may like to inaugurate the project. Other things will be decided in the ministry level in Delhi.
While the passenger movement from Agartala to Bangladesh will have to be seen when the railway line commences, but it is sure that this particular railway line between the two countries will definitely boost the trade and commerce activities on this border area. With camera person Subrato Shah, this is Kunal Shinde, DD News, Agartala.
A Middle East-based artificial intelligence company has released the world's most advanced Arabic language tool, JAIS, as it is known as a bilingual Arabic-English open source model, which has been trained on a massive data set of text and code. The tool is designed to facilitate communication between Arabic and other languages. A quick break ahead, but still to come on DD India News Hour. On the other side of the break, we'll tell you javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra finishes second at the Diamond League in Zurich. World Sanskrit Day celebrated in Nepal's Kathmandu. And Japan is celebrating the return of its first restriction-free summer festival season.
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products. Heartland of winter sports. Jammu and Kashmir is vibrant, diverse, ambitious, future-focused, full of life. Welcome to heaven on earth.
You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti Kaur. The Embassy of India, Valmiki Vidyapeeth and Nepal Sanskrit University have jointly observed World Sanskrit Day in Nepal's capital city of Kathmandu. The one-day seminar was inaugurated by the Chancellor of Nepal Academy with students performing the Bharatnatyam dance. Sanskrit is a 5,000-year-old language called Dev Vani, or the language of the gods. All right, from Nepal, we take you to Japan. Japan is celebrating the return of its first restriction-free summer festival season since the start of the pandemic. After years of COVID-related cancellations, towns and cities throughout the country are throwing a variety of celebrations and parties, some dating back a millennium. The festivals are a staple of Japan's cultural calendar, and many say the country has just not been the same without them. Our correspondent in Tokyo, Chris Gilbert, has more on this.
It's been a long time between drinks.
This mikoshi, a vessel carrying a Shinto god, is just one of many receiving the reverence of 500,000 participants of Tokyo's Tomioka Hachiman Festival, where they're doused in water to pray for rain and a good harvest. It's connected to a nearby Shinto shrine, which holds the festival every 3 years.
This festival has been around for 350 years. Festivals are about rebuilding communities. They allow people to connect with one another and the town flourishes. I think this is the reason why it's continued for such a long time.
This year, the so-called Water Festival went ahead after a few years of being left high and dry. After a pandemic cancellation in 2020, festival goers are glad to be back.
Since it's been 6 years, we have prepared carefully. Many were anxious and worried after so long, but everyone has cooperated and helped each other.
I have been participating in this festival ever since I was a child. I'm so glad it's back.
There are thousands of festivals held across the country every summer, steeped in centuries of rites and tradition. Although hardly any two are the same, people flock for the food and the fun. There are multiple layers of significance. Japan's brutally hot summers are also known as Obon, a time when people believe the spirits of our dead loved ones come home to visit us. Across Japan, this is celebrated with ancient dances, floating lanterns, and fireworks in cemeteries. But nearly all summer festivals are about connection.
When the festivals exist, the community is recognized. But in modern society, not everyone feels they belong to the community. The future of the festival's viability is challenged. The festival is challenged for its purpose. The coronavirus truly exposed this question.
While major events like the Tomioka Festival still attract people in their hundreds of thousands, Japan's depopulation crisis is endangering those in smaller towns. This festival has survived the pandemic, but challenges still remain for the future of Japan's thousands of summertime parties. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
So that was about celebrations and festivals in Japan. And now we turn focus to sports. India's javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra finished behind Jaku Vetlich with a throw of 85.71 meters. Neeraj began with an 80.79 meters throw in his first attempt, followed by 2 foul throws. He got an 85.22 meters throw in the fourth attempt, but his fifth attempt was once again a foul throw. Long jumper Murli Sri Shankar finished fifth. Indian Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur felicitated Indian chess prodigy R. Pragananda for a journey of brilliance at the 2023 FIDE World Cup, finishing as a runner-up and setting new milestones in Delhi. Pragananda has made India swell with pride and also captured the admiration of billions across the globe. The minister said that the entire nation is delighted with his achievements and the country awaits his future accomplishments. The draw for the group stage of the Champions League has thrown up some clashes between European giants and a difficult return to the competition for the Newcastle United team. DD India's Oli Bharat reports from London.
Group A contains Manchester United, who of course coveted Harry Kane but weren't able to sign him from Spurs, against Bayern Munich, who were, as the English striker goes in search of silverware. Perennial winners Real Madrid. In Group C have Italian champions Napoli to contend with. Arsenal, having added Declan Rice in midfield, will play PSV Eindhoven, RC Lens and Sevilla. Atletico Madrid, Lazio and Celtic also share an interesting group. Newcastle's return to the group stage for the first time in 21 years is going to be tough. They are drawn in Group F with Paris Saint-Germain, albeit no longer with Messi or Neymar in the squad. Former champions Borussia Dortmund and AC Milan as well. Now, Newcastle have high ambitions under Saudi ownership, and this is certainly a chance to show how close they are to the European elite. Spanish giants Barcelona draw Porto, Shakhtar and Royal Antwerp in their group. Current Champions League holders, Manchester City, get RB Leipzig, Red Star Belgrade and Young Boys, and they will fancy their chances of getting out of that group. All of these group games begin on the 19th of September. Wembley here in London hosts the final on the 1st of June next year. Ollie Barrett in London, reporting for DD India.
And just a quick recap for the viewers who've just joined us. Like we mentioned earlier, NASA SpaceX Crew 6 members celebrated their farewell on International Space Station as they began their journey back to Earth. The Crew 6 have spent their 6 months in a mission conducting vital research in space. Also, the returning astronauts have now ended their responsibilities and concluded scientific experiments. After the departure, the space station's population will go down to 7.
All right, Crew 6, amazing job. Steve, Woody, Sultan, Andre, we are all honored to have flown with you guys. This was a fun 6 months, and yeah, we're going to miss you guys, but we're looking forward to seeing you back on Earth. Great job.
All right, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off. And from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.